Hello folks, here today with the MG S6. This is actually the 8th all-electric vehicle from MG, and perhaps surprisingly, the only company in the UK that sold more battery electric vehicles to private buyers is Tesla. MG have done that well in the market. This one starts at 37,995 and it's basically got £3,000 price increments. So you get the SE long range is sort of the base trim, then £3,000 to go up to trophy, and then another £3,000 if you want to go up to the all-wheel drive version of the car, which is the one I've got today. It has to be said, like at the £38,000 mark, it looks a lot more attractive than at the other levels, despite the fact that Trophy comes with plenty of kit, simply because of that luxury car tax or expensive car supplement, whatever you'd like to call it. Let's hope that gets addressed fairly soon, because 40 grand is not a luxury car these days, but that's a different conversation for a different video. So the single motor versions come with 329 miles of WLTP range, a 7.3 second 0 to 62 time and 238 brake horsepower. If you go for the all-wheel drive, you get 5.1 second 0 to 62 time, 301 miles of all-electric range and 351 horsepower. The battery in this is a 77 kilowatt hour version. I think it's NMC technology, but I'm not completely sure on that one. Charging performance, it can peak charge at about 140 kilowatts on a DC fast charger, and they claim 38 minutes for that sort of illustrious 10 to 80% charge. The claimed efficiency on the car is also 4.9 miles per kilowatt hour. That will be put to the test today though, because it's 2 degrees at the moment, hence I've got my woolly wig and my big coat on. It always frustrates me a bit, folks, when you get an EV and it either has no frunk space or there's just enough to put a grab bag of crisps in there. For me, it's an ideal space to keep your charging cables, your first aid kits, all that kind of stuff that you perhaps not accessing every day, but you want it in a nice sort of handy, readily available place should you need it. MG have addressed my concerns here. This is the all-wheel drive version, so I've got 102 litres of frunk space, but if you go for the rear-wheel drive, you've got 124 litres, which is actually a bit more than you get on a Tesla Model Y. It's very usable as well. You could easily get a very large hold-all, a couple of rucksacks in there, and of course, plenty of room for all those things I mentioned before, charging cables, etc. And it doesn't just stop here with the storage. The boot in this thing's pretty impressive. Let's have a look. We've got a whacking great 674 litres of boot space. It doesn't look that big on the face of it, but then you notice there is a bit of a load lip, which I always like because it stops everything falling out. But actually it's the way they've used the space. The arches seem to be sort of pushed back and it's a nice big square. You've also got this removable deployable parcel shelf. There's nowhere clever for that to go by the looks of things, and under here the only underfloor storage you've got is actually a big bit of polystyrene and a place to put the battery. But the boot itself is incredibly usable. This one's also got these little cargo nets in the side, so you've got a little bit of side storage, and of course you've got that frunk. If you're after a big electric load lugger, this looks like it'll fit the bill. Today's video is sponsored by Leasing.com,
which is the leasing comparison site, and we don't just offer lease deals on cars, we offer them on vans and motorbikes too. Isn't that right, Jim?
It is. Leasing.com is the only comparison site that looks at the whole market. That means not just deals from brokers, but also from the funders directly, even from manufacturers directly, and from dealerships. That should mean there are more deals available, and hopefully you're able to get access to more vehicles and lower prices. So whether you're an old pro when it comes to car leasing, or perhaps you always PCP your cars normally, or perhaps you even pay cash, have a look in the link in the video description or scan this QR code and see if car leasing actually could save you a few quid. Thanks to Leasing.com for sponsoring today's video. This, I think, is testament to the fact that MG have listened to customers, because we've now got a physical dial for the temperature control. There's also fan controls. You can turn it on and off or increase, decrease it there. We've also got a physical dial for the volume. The infotainment screen is 12.5 inches. It's nice and bold. It's not particularly amazing in any respect, but it does offer a lot of information in one place. And again, it feels like some thought's gone into it, and it certainly feels snappier than some previous MG infotainment systems I've used. And then you've got a 10 and a bit inch driver information display, which again is really nice and bold and colourful. Something new for MG, I believe. We've also now got a head-up display, which is quite good. Reminiscent of the one in Kia and Hyundai's, I have to say. And it just basically is offering you things like the current speed limit and your current speed. All nice and useful and fairly simple. Nothing feels incredibly sort of cluttered. It is quite a clean layout. There are very few physical buttons, but I don't think it's actually lacking for that, because the important ones are here. You've also got a full array of steering wheel controls. These are buttons rather than sort of haptics. A couple of little joysticks, as you're probably used to if you're familiar with MGs, and the squared off steering wheel, which feels quite large and a wee bit slender under the hand, which some people will love. This one's got the grey interior, but you can get a light interior as well. So there is a beige option. I think it's only an option with this leatherette sort of suede finish, which you get in trophy models, however. So something to bear in mind. You've got a rotary dial to select forward, reverse, neutral, park, etc. Automatic handbrake, as you'd expect. A couple of nice cup holders and a quite sizable central cubby. And then underneath here, you've got quite a large space where you could fit a reasonable sized bag. You've got a couple of USB-Cs and a 12-volt power outlet under there. I did briefly touch on the materials there, and it does feel like a step up from what we've previously seen from MG. Just little things like the door cards feel lovely, the covers over the speakers, the switch gear on the doors. It feels like something from perhaps the next tier up, and not something you've traditionally would expect from what has been a value brand since MG obviously came back into the UK market. One thing I failed to mention, probably one of many, is this 50-watt wireless charging pad here, which is more than big enough to accommodate the big iPhone. So hopefully that's not a particular problem for you. It is cooled as well, which is something we're seeing in a lot of Chinese cars now. You've got these wireless charging pads that are capable of charging at a high rate of knots, but obviously your phone's liable to overheat. So the fact they've built cooling into it as well is a nice bit of forethought, really. Let's have a look in the back. Okay, so in the back here, you have to say it's very roomy. I mean, I'm 5'9" and a bit, and so I'm not a very tall bloke, but still, I've got that much headroom, which makes me suggest you'd be all right in here at about 6'4". This one does have this big glass panoramic roof, and I've also got that much legroom and loads of footroom. The footroom's something you don't always get in an EV, and that's because the battery has to go somewhere. Generally it's under the floor, and they tend to raise the floor up. Now this battery's only, I think, 110 mil thick, which means if they do have to raise the floor, you know, they're raising it by 11 centimeters or something, so it's not hideous. And the footroom is very much welcomed. Down there we've got two USB-Cs and a couple of vents, and here we have a nice big, very squishy central armrest with a couple of cup holders. Again, nice fit and finish, nice quality materials have been used on the door cards. You could sit 3 adults across the back here as well in pretty decent comfort. Obviously there's no tunnel on this, so you've got a completely flat floor, and there's plenty of space for everyone in pretty much every department. The seats are quite wide as well. It does have a nice feel of space and airiness in here, largely thanked by that, I guess, and the fact we've got quite a light headline in rather than a black one, as you get in so many modern cars. You've got seat pockets in the back there to stick your iPads, phones and magazines, all that kind of stuff. So it is quite a nice place to sit. I do like it. Yeah, good job, MG. Very good job. So once we get on the road, it's all quite good. One downside for me is this is a very big SUV, and I do have to do that a bit to see where the end of the bonnet is, because the visibility is not amazing on that front, but elsewhere visibility is very good. You've got decent reversing camera. The steering feels decent enough. You know, it's a big SUV, so we're not expecting this thing to handle like an M3, but it all feels pleasant. Like, nothing is disappointing me at the moment, although my navigation skills are, because I've just pulled into the Vodafone headquarters for no apparent reason. You know, sometimes modern cars, steering can be extremely vague. I don't feel that with this car particularly. Suspension's nice and smooth for the most part, but when you do get to like a big pothole or something crashy, all that refinement suddenly seems to disappear, and you do feel that imperfection. This one is on 20-inch wheels, and that may play a part in that, but for the most part, on a nice smooth road, it's glorious. And it is really only the very crashy stuff where that kind of changes. As far as brake regen goes, you have to access that via the main infotainment screen. You've got low, medium, strong, and then adaptive. There's also a one pedal drive mode, so let's just go into that. And the one pedal drive mode, immediately you can feel that feels good. I had it in adaptive mode previously. I've been in like cars with smoother regen. Yes, it would be better if you could control it on some paddles here, rather than having to access those settings via the on-screen menus. But largely, it works well. Now, something that greatly annoys a number of people, myself included, about a lot of modern cars are their driver assistance systems. Not necessarily those systems themselves, but the way they're implemented and the way some of the warning systems are implemented. And MG has taken that on board. So what they've come up with is something called MG Pilot Custom, and that allows you to save your preferences. So if you, for example, don't want the driver fatigue warning on, or you don't want the speed limit warning to come on every time you go 1 mile an hour over the speed limit, for example, you can just turn it off. With other things, you can sort of change their sensitivity and things like that, and then you save that as your preference. Then while you're driving along, say you've left the house and you've forgotten to turn off those things that you find distracting or bothersome in some way, literally just swipe down on the screen. There's a big button there saying MG Pilot Custom. You press that, you then press confirm, and all your settings are restored. So you're not diving through various levels of menu, but if you turn them off, you can be sure that you wanted them turned off. And the default always is, when you get in the car, they will be on. Okay. But I think that's quite a nice way of dealing with it, allowing you to save your preferences. So switching them off is at least a little bit easier. Obviously, all these things are part of Euro NCAP. This car's already been through Euro NCAP and it got 5 stars. Did very well on the crash test. I think that braking system is very good at stopping you quickly. Braking system, interestingly, developed by Continental, but the car's actually got Michelin rubber on it, which I thought if they were partnered with Continental for the brakes, they might be also for the tyres, but apparently not. Folks, as I've said, very cold outside today, 2 degrees, and it really does feel 2 degrees. I got absolutely frozen filming my bits to camera. I forgot any gloves, which is not great. And I literally got in the car and I've tried to thaw myself out as best I can. Since thawing myself out, I've turned the heated things off and put the aircon to 21 degrees, which is where I would normally have it. And I've reset the trip computer. And over the last 9.8 miles, I've got 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour in terms of the real world efficiency, which is not terrible considering it's 2 degrees outside. Now, when I had everything absolutely blazing to warm myself up, I was getting 2.3 miles per kilowatt hour. So you need to bear that in mind. If you're often getting into your car completely frozen, or you live in a particularly cold part of the UK, this car's not going to get anywhere near those claimed efficiency numbers or that claimed WLTP range. In more normal circumstances and probably a more normal use case, you might get somewhere closer to this 3.8 mark in the winter months. Much will depend on your particular circumstances, I guess. But aside from that thermal management side of things perhaps not being class leading, there's not too much to dislike about this car. Obviously I've only had the car for a couple of hours. I'm on a launch event. I haven't had the car for a week and I haven't put it through its everyday paces. But first impressions with this are really quite good. All in all, folks, this feels like a more premium car than we're perhaps used to from MG. The fit and finish feel fantastic. The materials feel good. It's a nice thing to drive. It's not going to make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. You know, it doesn't have that sort of crazy dynamic driver appeal. But people buying this car are not after that, are they? They're after something that's going to take them to the shops, ferry the kids around. And I'm sure it will be proved to be extremely capable with all those things. You do get a 7-year warranty with MG. You'll have to have a read into that and see how comprehensive it is. I know a lot of these longer warranties often sort of tail off after you get to sort of year 3 and fewer things are covered. But 7-year warranty, certainly on the face of things, seemed very competitive. And that's the general story of this car. It feels pretty competitive. In summary then, folks, another good all-rounder from MG, and certainly one that appeals to those that need a bit more space, because you can lug a lot of gear around in this, and a lot of people, if you go for the entry-level model, which is fairly well spec'd and you get all that safety equipment as standard, it looks like a really good value proposition. Where it struggles a little bit is when you start going up the trim levels, simply because you're then into luxury car tax territory. Certainly you are at the time I'm recording this. It might be worth having a look what that threshold is at the time you're perhaps watching this to see if it's changed. But currently it's £40,000, and as soon as you get into trophy trim, you're in that territory. Now this one is a top spec car, which means I've got the leather interior, or the leather effect interior, and the suede material, but it feels very well screwed together. The build quality feels like it's come on a bit in recent MGs, certainly compared to the first MG4 I ever had in for review. It is an impressive package altogether, and I think it is offering enough to possibly dissuade people from some of its competition. And obviously the competition goes up every day at the moment because we've got so many new entrants into the market. But MG has done well in the past by putting together a compelling package that offers a bit of value. And by all accounts, this one seems like it could do exactly the same and could be another hit for them. If you're interested in getting a lease price on this, don't forget to check out leasing.com. That link's in the video description, and there's probably some sort of QR code appearing on the screen for you. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give the video a thumbs up. Both those things are completely free and they help me out. Thanks ever so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Huge thanks to all my channel members for your continued support. I really do appreciate it.